1. When I was a young teenager, 13 to 15, I would spend most of my summers at my aunt's house in Indiana. I would go there to spend time with my cousin who was my age. My aunt would clean houses in wealthier neighborhoods for money while they were away on vacation, and since my cousin and I were so young, we always had to tag along. After helping her with this one house, though, we never went with her to any other houses again. We drive to the house and get inside, and it is just beautiful. It has a basement, first floor and second floor. All but the basement is carpeted. It had stairs that went up to the second floor in the entryway. My aunt decided to clean upstairs, including vacuuming the carpets, while my cousin and I cleaned up the basement. We were going to save the kitchen and first floor bathroom for the next day. I assumed because my aunt wanted to check and make sure everything was okay before the people came back. The basement was pretty creepy, which is unusual for such a nice house. It had a cement floor that was painted red, and it was very chipped. It had a recliner in the center of the room, with a crappy TV in front of it that still had turning knobs on it to change the channel and volume. It also had a bathroom that just made you feel very uncomfortable. It had a tiny mirror and a cheap shower curtain and toilet. That room was dark, and it just felt like something was in the doorway of the bathroom staring you down. We finished cleaning and my aunt asks me to run upstairs, grab something she must have dropped in one of the rooms, maybe her car keys or something. I don't really remember. She's pissed because now there will be footprints on the carpet she just vacuumed, and tells me to walk lightly and drag my feet a little. I get to the top and check one of the rooms, and it's full of footprints, as if someone was pacing in there. I looked for whatever it was she wanted me to grab and found it. When I walked back out of the room, I noticed there were more footprints in the hallway, leading to all the rooms. I rush downstairs and tell her, and she kind of turns white but tries to hide it. She said I must be lying, or I must have done them myself, because she makes sure to leave no footprints while vacuuming. She said she will fix it tomorrow, and we leave. When we return the next day, we open the door and hear this loud blaring sound. We couldn't tell where it was coming from. There are now footprints all over the house, from the entryway up the stairs and each and every room. You couldn't even tell she had vacuumed anything. There were so many footprints in that carpet. We decide to find the source of the noise and save the footprints for later. The noise was coming from the basement. The TV was on and blaring. There was no picture. The screen was white and a little fuzzy. My aunt turned it off, and turned to face me and my cousin. I can tell she's kind of afraid, but she just says, "They must have come home from vacation already." I know she's lying. The people weren't coming home for another 2 days, and they would have called her if they came home early. I head upstairs and just cannot believe all the footprints up there. I called my cousin up to look at all of them. We knew something weird was going on and that my aunt was trying to blame it on something else. I don't know what was going on in that house, but it was pretty creepy. 2. A little background info. I moved for college and now I rent a room in a 3-story house that's sorta old. I'd say maybe somewhere from 1920s to 1940s. There are 6 rooms, 4 on the second floor and 2 on the third. I have one of the 2 on the top floor. It's basically a renovated attic. And currently, I'm the only one renting a room in the house. But until 2 weeks ago, I had a roommate downstairs who came in and out late at night, maybe 3 times a week. He was moving into a different apartment closer to his job. Okay, so now my actual story. When I moved in, I didn't really feel or notice anything. I was actually really happy to have such a big space to myself for the most part. The first thing I remember happening is that about a month in, I was taking a shower and had gotten out to dry off. I was doing my thing when I heard the very distinctive noise of my front door open and then shut, and heavy footsteps inside. I always lock the door behind me, so I assumed it was my roommate, finally coming home for the week. I wrap a towel around me and walk about 5 steps outside the bathroom and look down the stairs to just say hey and go back to what I was doing. However, when I get down there, I realize I am the only one home. The door is still locked, and he is nowhere to be seen. There is no other door for him to exit through, and he would have passed me on the stairs. I was freaked out, but I shook it off, blaming my imagination. Since then, I've heard many doors close and footsteps while up in my room. Noise carries well in the house, and I can hear just about everything. I've heard knocks on the bathroom door as I'm drying off from a shower. It's happened twice now. Since then, I've decided to leave the door open. Up until now, I've tried to just blame it on the house settling or my imagination. Until last night. Every night when I go to bed, I lock all the doors, including my bedroom door. Nothing weird has happened in my rooms, so I felt safe in my little hobbit hovel. I had been watching a show on my laptop, Food Wars, but I decided to finish it in bed on the app. So I closed my laptop and got in bed. I finished the season and promptly went to sleep around 2 a.m. I was woken up at 3:58 a.m. to the very loud sound of my laptop across the room on my desk open, with the show playing full screen and full volume. Now, with my laptop, you have to open it, unlock it, and press play on the video. And I did not have the video on autoplay or anything. The situation didn't really register with me, so I got up and closed my laptop, which was, for some reason, sort of tucked behind my curtains. My desk is in front of a window, and laid back into bed to get comfy. It then hit me how strange and creepy it was, and I laid wide-eyed in bed panicking. I finally got the courage to turn the lights on and look around, but my door was still locked, and nothing else seemed to be touched. Needless to say, I had trouble sleeping the rest of the night. I'm now completely scared out of my mind to go back home after classes today, and be alone in that house after what happened. I don't know what to do, or to think, but I'm freaked out. I'll update if anything else happens. Edit. Last night I placed heavy objects on my laptop, and wore headphones to bed. As far as I know, I slept soundly. 3. This encounter was relayed and happened to my aunt. Occurred in the early 70s. My aunt, Mom's older sister, a university physics professor, used to work in a city, about 7 hours by road from where my mom's family lived. My maternal grandparents' home is in a very small everybody-knows-everybody town. Village, almost. At the top of a hill in the western Ghats of Indiana. A hill station, rainforest area, and in the limited electricity, no TV days, the town practically shut down post-dusk, and people would be in deep slumber by 8 p.m. My aunt would apparently come home during long weekends, or festival holidays, carrying a shit ton of stuff from the town, fruits, veggies, snacks, and knickknacks for the younger siblings, and general stuff for the house. And given that this was a time before phones, she'd let the family know by snail mail of her arrival, so someone from home would fetch her from the bus depot to home. This one time, however, when my aunt landed late one evening from the city, there was no one from the family to pick her up. The village stop is the last one for the night, and the bus leaves the next morning to the city. So she was literally the only passenger at the depot, accompanied by the bus driver and conductor, who usually sleep in the bus for the night. She starts her walk home, lugging several bags on each shoulder, and although the house is not more than a mile from the depot, she was desperately hoping she bumped into someone that could help her with the darn bags before the thick of the night set in. Just when the deserted streets were beginning to get super dark, and she thought she'd run out of luck for the day, she heard a familiar voice holler from behind her, asking her to wait up. It was the village police constable, Rajana, who also happened to be my grandfather's former tenant, and knew the family closely. He explained he was out on night patrol, and given that there were some recent Naxal intrusions, violence in the area, she was lucky he found her and could accompany her, give her a hand with her luggage. They chatted and caught up on the village gossip along the way, and my aunt was dropped off at the beginning of her street. Rajana told her he was late for his patrol and had to leave. There is a temple right before the house, so the area was now well lit, and my aunt was thankful for the company and help. They bid their goodbyes. She got home to a surprised family. They hadn't received her post, but were obviously glad she was home. Needless to say, all the kids were excitedly getting into the bags, and my grandma asked her how she managed to get home with all the stuff, and that she could have just left them at the depot office to be picked up next morning. My aunt explained that she thankfully met Rajana on his rounds, and he helped her carry some of them for her till the home street. The room instantly gets very quiet, folks seemingly in utter shock and confusion. Which Rajana, asks my grandpa, and my aunt begins to explain until she realizes that she had received a letter a couple of weeks ago of him being shot to death in a Naxal police crossfire. That was the last time the absent-minded professor took the bus home, at least until telephones and mobiles happened, or she had living company. Of course, the whole family took a leaf out of this legendary encounter and hopes not to meet similar company, despite how friendly they may be. 4. I just recently started working at the post office, making it my second actual job thus far through my life. Not even 2 weeks in, and I already had my first recent near-death experience. Supposedly, I was close to drowning when young, something I do not remember from my youth. In short, while stopping the post moped next to a row of apartments to prepare the mail for that particular place, just as I stopped, an empty glass bottle crashed right in front of the vehicle. Presumably, it was standing on the edge of a balcony on top of one of the floors, 6th or 7th or so, and was gently tilted over by the strong winds that morning, which made it fall. I stopped for a moment, to let the moment sink in, knowing that what just happened could have resulted in my death had I been more unlucky. I didn't grieve over it too long, though, and went on with my route for the day. Later the same day, back at the actual post office, I told my boss about the incident, and he got the proper report written down for it in case something similar happens again. When sitting down to eat my late lunch for the day, I told my mother at home about it over a text message, and when dropping the news of my possible death, she called me immediately so she could hear the full story. I broke it all down and explained everything about it, and once I did, I ended the whole story with, "I'm so lucky because had I stopped any longer forward, it could have seriously injured or killed me, could have ended really badly." To which something very unexpected happened. Just as I finished that one sentence, there was a slight pause. It was very brief, but long enough to make me a bit uneasy, thinking I had shocked her too heavily. The silence was broken, however, by what I can only describe to be some sort of slightly up-pitched, sped-up whispering over the phone. It was very fast and inaudible, and it really caught me off guard. The fast, disturbing whispering went on for just 2 or 3 seconds, before pausing abruptly. Total silence for about 2 seconds before continuing, as if just cut off for a while before going on again. This whispering went on about 3 times before I slowly lowered the phone from my ear and hung up the call, very uneasy about what had just happened. Nothing of this nature has happened before to me, and it was kind of like a pine cone in the fruit salad that was just tossed aside after being discovered. It just happened, and then I went on with my days as if it never did, which still kind of baffles me. I have a very open mind and really try to come up with all sorts of reasons why and how that phone call happened. And I really have no reasonable explanation to it. Why exactly then, and why just like that? Random fast whispering gibberish. And she didn't call me back after I hung up, something she usually does if a phone call is cut short out of the blue. My apologies for the lengthy post, but I figured I'd cover all bases right away. Any thoughts about it, or perhaps related stories from before that can be compared? 5. So I've always had things following me. To be totally honest, I'm more of a cynic than anything. But after years of this shit, I should really just give it up. I come from a huge family. None of them ever believed in spooky shit. Most logical people ever. I have managed to, accidentally, convert all of them. I walk into rooms and things fall over, shatter, move, turn off or on. My co-workers have all told me just plain and simple, "You're fucking haunted, dude." The most jarring things have happened at where I used to work, quit 2 weeks ago. Woo. I picked up this asshole years ago that I used to call John. Absolutely terrifying son of a bitch. Tall, grotesque in build, menacing beyond all tell. My co-workers started noticing him at work, before I even knew he'd followed me there though, and they call him Mimic. They all love scaring our newest employees with stories about him, and almost all of them have their own stories within weeks. Here are a few of them. At first it was just small things. Though he got the nickname Mimic very quickly, no one really believed in him too much until the bad things started happening. He was mostly a joke at first. You'd be putting up chairs in the front, your co-worker could be behind the register in the front, closing shop, and you'd hear your co-worker's voice exactly say, "Hey, come here," from the back. The blast freezers would open on their own, things moving constantly, knocks on the doors. Almost consistently, after about 9 when doors locked, if you went to the restroom you'd get a few knocks and your co-workers saying, "Hey, come help me with this." You'd think they're fucking with you, obviously. But if you checked the CCTV footage, no one would be near you. No one would be talking. It got scary when I was opening alone, though. The worst morning a few months ago was a Sunday. I unlock the door, turn off the alarm, start making ice creams and setting the place up. Before I know it, I'm sitting in the bathroom, fetal position on the ground, in the corner begging my mid-shift to come in an hour early. Because I'm not leaving the bathroom without another person to be terrified with. I'd seen the bungee cord we used to keep the blast shut, slingshot across the room at me, loud banging on our cake cases, fridge and glass windows. The front door, even though it was locked, would make the door alarm sound. The cakes I had set out to decorate get pushed to the floor. Those are expensive as fuck. I was so pissed. And I kept hearing this obnoxious whistling start up, right the fuck behind me. I kept seeing a terrible tall figure watching me around the shop. I ran to the bathroom after I could have sworn I saw it charge me through the employee's doorway, where I was standing in front of our cold stone, all the while feeling this terrifying feeling pushing on my chest. It almost seemed to make everything fuzzy. I really do not know how to describe the vibe he puts off. Anyways, my MIDI agrees after asking me what the hell was wrong, and understanding when I just said, "Shit's fucked." I hear the door alarm go off a few minutes later, so I leave my safe corner to meet her halfway. At that moment we hear a crash, and braver together, open the employee's door to the back room. The desk drawers are open, and all the employees' request-off sheets that were previously on the door were on the ground. At this point we spent the rest of our shifts side by side, because the second we separated, something would be thrown or fall, or a voice would call to us, or we would see a shadow behind us. This is the story of the time he really earned the name Mimic. He's always shown up, most when a few particular people are working. God forbid all 3 of us work the same shift, though. He's most strongly connected to who I'll call G, of course me, and mildly to another, T. I wasn't working the night this happened, but you bet your ass they called me horrified. And I regaled this happening to absolutely every person who works the shop. It wasn't too late, just after close. On busy nights it usually takes crews of 3 about 3 hours to get out, with money and floors being the absolute last things to get done. T was in the front of the shop, wiping windows. G and another co-worker were in the back room doing dishes, wiping down the blast freezer doors and shooting the shit together. T from the front, can't hear them over the music and through the walls. Cleaning grubby child handprints off the doors, T sees in the reflection G at the register looking at him. He had that weird, heavy, creepy feeling all night, but he just genuinely assumed that it really was G. He was seeing behind the register. He was confused as to why G would be trying to do money so early in the closing, but brushed it off. After finishing the glass, half watching G the whole time, because he was getting creeped out at how he was just staring at him for 15 minutes from behind the register, T turns around to confront him. G is nowhere to be seen. T just assumes he ran back into the back room, but also knew he didn't hear footsteps, and it was only barely 2 seconds between him seeing G in the reflection and turning to look. T picks up his supplies and walks into the back room, and asks why the fuck G was staring at him and what he needed. G and the other employee just stare at him, and they both swear G has been in the back the whole time. But everyone felt that pressure and creeped out the whole night. Were hearing things, etc. Looking at the security footage, G was really in back the whole time. He still turns white when he even talks about it. I have personally been face to face with G talking to him. G will be mid-sentence and we will both hear his fucking voice call out to me from somewhere else in the shop. A few times I've been working with someone who doesn't believe a lick and brushes off all our warnings as teasing. One night, doors had been locked for well over an hour. I walked back to the back room after cleaning stone, and my co-worker N was sitting pale as a sheet, staring at the door. Where he was sitting, he had a clear view of me working, and the door out of the back room to the side of the front, where most of our tables are, and where a lot of shit goes down. I asked him what's wrong, and he just mumbled, "That door has been trying to open for 15 minutes, and there's no one on the other side of the door to jiggle the handle like that." Me, being a dick and used to that nonsense, just tell him, "Mimic may be powerful and scary, but he is an idiot when it comes to basic motor functions. Stay in here, and you'll be fine unless he really wants to scare you. But he will come in through the walk-in freezer then, and he will slam a few times on the door to warn you." What I said was all true, but Anne almost died. After that, he asked our manager to only work at the other shop. Just recently, though, I got a call from G, who was working the other shop at the time. He was scared as shit with a new co-worker, and they informed me that a creepy man had left a pearl bracelet there after insisting the girl put it on, and directly after that, locked doors started opening and slamming shut, even in front of customers, and lights went haywire. So I guess they have a haunt now too. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 32. Thank you very much to everyone who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Okay, just a heads up, at the moment I have no TIFUs, I just haven't been able to get any this week. But tomorrow will either be more paranormal or possibly just some regular true scary stories. I'll decide when I'm recording. Okay, with that I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening and take very good care of yourselves.